In 1984, a psychologist named Dr. Hugh Len began working at the high-security psychiatric unit at Hawaiian State Hospital. According to the widely shared story, he helped transform the ward without ever sitting down with a single patient. How did he do it? He didn't conduct traditional therapy. He didn't prescribe medication. He rarely met with the patients face to face. Instead, he sat alone in his office, read through their files, and rather than trying to heal his patients, he decided he was simply going to heal himself instead. Today, we're going to explore a question that has fascinated me for years. What is spiritual healing? And stick around till the end to see the answer of how Dr. Hugh Len achieved this.
Everything we do is fueled by our desire to learn and grow, because we believe that what we seek is also seeking us.
Today, welcome back to our episode. I've just been so nervous about this episode. I've prepared everything. This is supposed to be like my thing where I talk about like my spiritual nonsense. And we wanted to be early. We're also late, so I'm kind of like shaking.
Okay, take a breath. Okay, so I'm very, very curious because I love that intro and I have no idea what you're talking about today.
Okay, so a lot of times when I have my notes here, I'm gonna touch up on everything that I want to say, okay? So when people hear the word spiritual healing, a lot of times they think about crystals, meditation, oud, but these are all external things, yoga mats, doing yoga, physical things. But what if spiritual healing is about removing what's within that no longer belongs there? Instead of having more external tools, we're gonna be looking at how we can expand our internal tools for this session. And the question I want to answer with this episode is, I want you to think about it. Why is it that some people are trapped in the same relationships, the same fears, the same patterns for decades, and they can't seem to shed those patterns? We're also going to talk about why people, they're not able to completely transform. Not because their circumstances are changing, but because something inside them is not. So we're just gonna address like the inside stuff, finding yourself dating the same type of person, finding the same circle of friends. And it's like you can't get rid of the things that you know are wrong for you, but you just can't do anything about it. I want to give you some tools for those things. And that's why I want to take you through a journey of what the spirit is. And for this, we're gonna look at the psychology of things, because I feel like every one of our episodes has led to this one. We have over each episode kind of explained singular topics that kind of unify to become this one bigger thing, which is the soul, the spirit. So first, we're going to talk about another psychological point, which I know all of these things you've touched upon and you know about. So first is the iceberg theory, okay? Now, a lot of the spiritual teachings that I'm going to show you guys, a lot of the spiritual tools come from Zoroastrian, Hinduism, and Sufism. So first, we're going to talk about the iceberg theory, Freud's metaphor about the self. How you have yourself, which imagine the Titanic, and you have an iceberg. And first you have the ice that's above the surface. That's us. That's who we are, how we are presented to the world. At the very peak, we have our egos. What we would like others to perceive us, what the image of what people think of us. Underneath is the majority of the iceberg. That's the lower self. That's the subconscious mind. And we are gonna talk about, how like we've been talking about over this time, we're talking about how neuroscience, how we have neurological pathways that keep expanding when habits happen. And we pave pathways, right? Remember talk about that?
Yeah, so, yeah. Do you want me to? Sorry.
Yeah, you can explain it because I know you know it by heart and you explain it so well. Just like touch up on that.
Okay. Do you want to like start diving into the things? Do you want to go into something and then or do you want to start with like the science? Like what do you want me to touch on?
The science, like for example, you know how we have predictive processing. We have the what was the name of the neurological pathways that create paths and then you repeat them?
So yeah, your neurological, your wiring. So
It has like a name, right?
I'm even blanking today.
It has like a name to it, and
Plasticity.
Plasticity.
Well, neuroplasticity is what basically your brain is always capable of change. It's very plastic. People used to think of the brain like a machine that was fixed and it's stuck, and that the things that we learn are unlearnable. But neuroplasticity shows that the brain is always changing. When you learn new information, you rewire your brain. So your brain consists of so many neural pathways, and as we form habits and beliefs, these pathways then connect, and this results in the behaviors that we do day to day. So it's like certain things that you do one-off, that doesn't form a habit. It's the things that you do repeatedly, consistently, that end up shaping who you are.
Exactly. And also there is a book about that, like breaking habits or something about
atomic
habits. Atomic habits, yeah. So the subconscious mind has your stored memories, conditioning, fears, habits, learned beliefs, okay? And all of these things, the schemas that you grew up with, schemas are like images that you have of your mind. Like, for example, when you think of a bird, you think of feathers. There's like a pop of an image that comes to your mind. Sometimes those schemas could be what plays into racism or sexism, because you think of like, you know, a certain race and you associate them with this type of an image, and that's a schema, right? So your belief system, your childhood, everything that has engineered you to become who you are now is literally your subconscious mind. And with all of these Sufi methods, we're gonna dive into the subconscious mind. We're gonna try to better understand it, okay? I had a list of things. Maybe I will put it on the bio, because I feel like the topics with psychology, you can also read books that are on the topic so you can understand it through science better. But today I'm gonna focus on explaining it to you guys with the nafs, the lower self. We Sufis call it the nafs. So we're going to go through the 7 layers of the nafs and how you can take back your willpower and take control of your subconscious mind. I watch these like videos from Sadhguru, and he's like, a person who's in charge of their physical self is 10% a completed human being. Someone who takes control of their mind is 40 to 50% a complete human being. But if you take control of your subconscious mind, you're 100% in control of your faith, your destiny, and who you are as a person, you know? So we're gonna dive into the nafs. Now, this is very hard for me because I feel like this is just something that I don't see out there, and it's like all of this information that I've had to collect over the years. So I'm gonna give you guys a background. So there's different traditions that talk about the nafs, or the lower self. Zoroastrians have this symbol. It's called the farvahar. It's a man with wings. He's holding a circular shape. The circle is the soul and the cycles of life, and how you have to go through those things to become complete or reach completion. The wings have 3 sections. It represents good thoughts, good words, good deeds. When you practice good things, you rise, your frequency rises. You go back to your creator. You become a part of you merge with the beloved, your creator. But then he also has 3 lower wings, which are bad thoughts, bad words, bad deeds. Because bad thoughts lead to bad words, and bad words lead into bad deeds. And they will weigh you down, and your frequency will lower. So Carl Jung also touches up on this. If you want to look at it psychologically, it's the shadow self. And I'm going to describe them. Because chakras are more widely known and there is more information about them, I'm going to describe the nafs to you with the chakras to really simplify it, okay? So you have a physical body. Your physical body has a lot of, a part of your subconscious mind is also all of the inner engineering, which is like your immune system, your lymphatic system, your nervous system. All of these systems are working on autopilot. You don't have any control. You don't know how it is that you tie your shoes. You just know it. It's something that you learn and now it's a part of who you are. Your inner engineering systems are the same. And we have 11 different inner systems that are always working, and those are just physical ones, like our nervous system, metabolism. Your stomach is working,
your
whether your
heartbeat,
heartbeat, exactly. So these are the same systems. They're working, but they're working spiritually to keep you intact. So I want you to imagine, I have tried to make a diagram for you guys, okay? And we will try it with our editor to put this like above. Here we have the body. I'm gonna do this so you can also see it. And then we have the different systems, right? Your skeleton system, you have all of these. It's like 11 different types of systems. And this is just the physical ones. And in order for you to understand, imagine the mind, the body, and the soul have to go together. So it's good to read up on all of these physical systems as well, to know how to moderate them. And a lot of people talk about this. Today, we're going to talk about your spiritual system. So imagine how we have 7 major big chakras, okay? We have the root located here. We have the sacral, above, like near our belly button. We have the solar plexus, which is near our stomach, the heart, the throat, third eye, and our crown. We have more chakras, like one that's above our heads. It's called a soul star. And we have one that's like underneath our feet, which is the ground chakra. There is 114 different chakras. These are the major ones. And they all kind of play down. So if this is the heart, the ones near the hands and your fingers are related to the heart one, okay? And they kind of feed one another. Imagine each of these lights.
Before you go into like what are chakras, because you didn't address that.
They're just energy systems. So they're spiritual energy systems in your body. So you have the 7. You guys can Google this. Now, the thing with the chakras is that chakras, imagine them like they have, depending on their frequency of their energy and what level they operate in, they have a color. So at a certain frequency, your root chakra just organically becomes a red color. So that's why they're all colored. Now, when, just like everything else, if something has energy and it absorbs light, it has like a projection, it has a halo. The chakra, the energy it produces expands to become the halo that's protecting your body. Your halo is the work of your chakra. So you have 7 halos that are actually your chakras that are surrounding you, projecting. And then you have the 8th layer of a halo that comes from your birth, and it's what veils you from seeing other beings. It separates you from other worldly things. And that's why we can't see energetical beings. That's why, but when your frequency gets to a certain level where it's higher, that veil thinners for you. So that's a completely different thing. If you guys want that, like for example, in the story of Prophet Muhammad, he goes to the 8th sky. Sufis talk about the fact that the 8th sky is not a place you go to, it's the 8th halo that you surpass. So it's all within you. You are the master of the universe. And in order for you to get to know the world better, everything is through the heart chakra. Because once the lower chakras are handled, you start operating from a higher frequency. Naturally, you just feel a different, life just moves different for you. And I will explain how that works. So we have each of the chakras. They are, operating at a level. And what happens is that you get your halos. So, this is, let's say, the root. You have a red halo around you. You have an orange one around you. Then you get a yellow one for your solar plexus, your green one, and each of these have a halo, okay? Now, depending on your deeds, words, thoughts have a frequency. Everything in this world is energy. Einstein talks about this. MC equals, M equals C squared. Everything is energy. Everything is made of atoms. The only difference between you and this chair is that you don't operate on the same frequency. And the difference between you and objects is that you have a consciousness. That consciousness is what we're going to get into, so you can understand yourself on a deeper level. So let's say you have thoughts, okay? Thoughts are here. So you have very negative thoughts, okay? When these negative thoughts repeat themselves, what ends up happening is that you're producing an energy that operates on a certain frequency. You then start attracting this frequency, and the projection of your thoughts and what you're doing sits on top of your halo. For example, let's say you're somebody who acts from a place of fear all the time. It's not because you're a bad person or you're just a fearful person. Things have happened to you in your childhood, traumas, fears, beliefs. Maybe you had a mother who was scared of dogs. When you see dogs, you get afraid of them. These are things that you can look into science to help you heal with them. But then also spiritually, when you keep acting from a place of fear, what ends up happening is that you create a bubble of energy. Almost think of it as, like I've told you this, I call them energetical vampires. They actually have shapes. Like when you have thoughts, your thoughts have shapes. They have, like it's like a bloop of, sometimes they look like octopuses, jellyfishes, and I will show you guys this with the images. They sit on top of your halo. So you have your halo when when you get sight and you see somebody's halo, and they have these little bulbs of black in their halo. Those are energetical vampires, and this is not some sort of like external being that has caused this. This is you. This is your deeds creating those patterns. When they sit on top of your halo, those are what causes the patterns. For example, I'm gonna give you guys an example. I have on my ChatGPT, I have talked to ChatGPT to tell me what each chakra is responsible for. And for example, let's say I was telling ChatGPT that I feel like I lie a lot, okay? When you feel like, for example, if you're a liar, like there will be like a black thing near your throat area. It's the deed of your action that's just sitting on top of your throat halo. And these beings are like mosquitoes. They have consciousness, but they're not like planning. They don't have consciousness to know. They just resonate with your frequency. So they sit and feed on top of your halo. And it's not like a scary thing. It's not like they're actual alive being. It's just energy. And I was telling ChatGPT that I want to understand why I lie sometimes, okay? So and I dive into it. So for example, let's say your root feels fear. Like somebody asks you a question where you don't want people to know the answer to, but you feel pressured. So fear starts at the root, okay? Then you want to avoid feeling shameful and discomfort. So your sacral also starts getting agitated, and it's like, okay, I'm uncomfortable. I feel shame if I answer the truth to that question. So then what happens is that your solar plexus also starts feeling a low confidence. All of these chakras are playing together. You feel low confidence about the fact that you want to answer this question. It brings you shame. You don't want people to know about it, right? So then you use your sacral, your third eye, to create a delusion of a lie, another storyline, another different pattern of how things actually happen, because you don't want to face the truth of it. Then the throat tells the lie. Now that energy that you created with your deeds comes out, sits on top of your halo, because the action itself has an energy form. It has a frequency. So then you have this, like, normally halos are about like 1.5 meter to 2 meters, depending on your frequency, and they're all around us. So you're sitting there in like a bloop of light, let's say, with different colors. You're walking around the world and you meet someone. Let's say I am a liar for whatever reason, fear, shame, trying to hide stuff or maybe people are asking me questions that they shouldn't be asking, and it's putting me in a bad position. It's not that you're a bad person. It's just that your belief is to be kind and answer, for example, but now you feel like you're in an awkward position, right? So you're walking around life and you have like a bloop of light that's sitting on your halo. Then you meet people that resonate with that frequency. So if you're 5% a liar and you have this energy sitting on top of your halo, it attracts somebody else who has the same frequency of that deed. So you might meet somebody who's 100% a liar, and maybe they're more conniving. Maybe you felt shame when you lied because you were trying to protect yourself and your family members. Your intention was in the right space, but it's still, the frequency of that deed was still a lie. And that person does it in a conniving way. but it's still the same frequency. They don't understand. It doesn't have like, it just,
Doesn't have a filter.
it doesn't.
I think it's like almost like a good way to think about it. It's like radio waves. Like, you know how if you're on the radio and you want to tune into a certain channel, you have to keep turning until it locks in with that same frequency. The frequency of your car is locking in with the radio wave. It's the same thing, right?
Exactly. And like a really good way to look at all of these like lights and halos is frequency of light. You know how we can't see microwave lights or red lights or x-ray vision, right? We only see certain colors and wavelengths, and that's why we see colors. That's why colors exist, because it's at a certain wavelength. So the thing we do with Sufism is we try to kind of separate all those layers. We call them different levels of the lower self, and we work on each of those chakras at a certain amount of time on its own. The key to this is consciousness, is awareness. For example, I was walking around and I realized that I have a solar plexus issue. It's good to go read up on the chakras and what each of them represents. So none of my actions or deeds are based off of me being malicious or having the wrong intent, but there is things within me that need fixing. And I go and I sit with myself and I work on each chakra so that I can better not only understand myself, but I can better have control with them. What we do with Sufism is something that science does as well. We don't try to diminish or destroy the darkness within us. We try to replace it with something better.
I love when you say this because so you've never taken theta healing, but a lot of the things you say, so theta healing is a practice that mixes a lot of different teachings together. So it takes practices from Sufism, from Buddhism, from religion, from psychology, and it merges them into one school of thought that looks into how we can identify limiting beliefs within ourselves and then work to resolve them. So even what you're saying now, sorry, can you repeat what you said? I don't know why my mind blanked.
So I was talking about how it's within us. We have to replace it with the light.
Okay.
Okay.
So in theta healing, what we do is, and this is actually goes for psychology as well. When you have a belief and you're trying to change a behavior, you can't just remove the belief, because what ends up happening is that either the same belief will come back or it will get replaced by another belief that maybe is one that you don't want. Mm-hmm. So you actually have to work and replace it with the belief that is good for you, the belief that you want to hold. So you can't just remove the belief. Like, for example, let's say you feel unloved. You can't just say, I'm not unloved, and then just move on with your life, because 9 times out of 10, that belief comes back. And that's why, to your point, like things like somatic tools, like just meditating or doing affirmations or breath work doesn't work to replace beliefs on a subconscious level because they're so deeply rooted.
I feel like there is... I have like a list and charts of all the beliefs that are within us that are shadow parts, and exactly what emotion or frequency of energy which resonates with the feeling replaces it. For example, let's say you have anger, which is a part of the root chakra, okay? So it doesn't mean you go around punching people. You could have like anger about the smallest thing, like get frustrated with yourself. It could be the smallest forms of anger. What we do is there is a frequency that can counterattack that, and that one is kindness. So you go around trying to be more kind to every single thing. As a result of being more kind and compassionate, the anger kind of resolves itself. So even for low frequency or the 7 sins or the sins that the lower self does, there is a counter frequency that's exactly a match for how to diminish that. I feel like if people are more interested, I am okay with, maybe sharing this stuff. I could do it on my Instagram, or they could like check out our the page. Maybe I can like put some of that stuff or put some quotes. Here is all of your different bodies, and we will put this on the thing. So your halos are all around you, and each of the halos, this is where it gets a little bit complicated, they are your ethereal bodies. So the halo in your dream state, your nafs is what you dream with. So these bodies can travel between the dimensions as well. So when you're dreaming, you're actually living in other dimensions or other veils of this world with the bodies, with your halo. It's going through these veils.
I want to ask like a few questions just to clarify for the audience, because this is something we've spoken about a lot, but I feel like for people that are listening the first time or who don't know, it's interesting. So when you say the word nefs, is the nefs the same as a chakra?
Yes.
Okay. And then when you talk about the halos, it's a projection of your chakra. So it's your astral body being projected. Sorry, so your nefs is then also within your halo.
Your chakra is not your nafs. Your chakra is just your energy system inside.
That's what.
The light it projects becomes the halo.
And
When the halo leaves the body, it's referred to as the nafs.
okay, that's
it's the
my question.
name for that extra body. Okay. So in Arabic, the nafs is not referred to that way. Sufis refer as the nafs in a way. Like Sufis take the Quran and look at it as like a blueprint to the spiritual realm. So none of this is Quranic in any way. None of this is religious. If anything, I think it's shunned upon, to like try to understand yourself in any shape or form on a deeper level is almost shunned upon.
That no, but I understand your point of like maybe the teaching of it. Like for example, in Islam, Sufism is often misunderstood because it's not followed maybe like in the most, well, Sufis don't practice in the most traditional way, which is why it's shunned, I think.
Yeah, but also
it's
for like thousands of years, if anybody practiced any source of science or did any mysticism, they were also put in jail, So like this is the Sharia. It's just like 1, 2, 3 physical, like looking at the Quran only physically and abiding by it. Sufis don't do that. They look at all the religious textbooks and they look at them as ways of understanding the self further. So they're almost like the philosophers, like the Greek philosophers of the Islamic world, and they're mostly Persian because it comes from Zoroastrian. A lot of Sufis also were Zoroastrian people who were forced to convert, but they would keep their teachings. So they're really not like...
It's not the same practice.
Yeah, but the name itself, because you know how when your language, you're not allowed to speak your language, when you're not allowed to practice your faith under Islamic rulership, what would happen is that these people would use Islamic references, but they were talking about something completely different. So you hear the word nafs maybe, but in Arabic, it just means willpower. Right? So Sufis go like, oh yeah, it's the willpower, but it's your lower selves they're talking about. It's taking control of the lower selves. It's about all of these different bodies that also travel between the realms. For example, famously, Shahnameh, he had a lot of fantasies about, he's a Persian literature and he wrote a lot of stories, okay? All of these stories are about how his nafs, while traveling between the realms, was meeting beings and like battling them. So he was meeting with Ahriman or like satanic or whatever beings, and he was fighting them. And it almost looks like Lord of the Rings, and it looks like something out of this world. It's because a lot of times in your dreams, you actually come across beings like that, You might see things, you might notice things, and everybody just kind of assumes based off of their own subconscious mind that maybe it's a cousin or a relative that they're seeing. But no, actually you're having meetings with beings that are from other realms. You just don't understand how to like... And it's also not important when it comes to helping yourself and working on yourself. We completely try to ignore that aspect of it because it's a very normal thing to come across beings. The more spiritually advanced you get, the more your frequency rises. At a certain point, your third eye even opens and you might encounter other beings. But the point is ascension. And also, if you don't want your third eye to open, it will never open because it's also you. And you are God. God is within you. So you have the power to say, I don't want that to happen. Like I've read a lot of Sufi stories where, one of this third eye has 7 layers as well, okay? The first layer is where you start seeing people's halo, the little energetical vampires. Second layer is when it gets removed, you start seeing beings, but only shapes of them, like while they're living in the world that we are. So you might see a shadow shape. It's very like vague and you can't really see anything. The third level, you start seeing more often. And also you start astral traveling, astral projecting. Your nafs will, like while you're dreaming, you're conscious. So you go like, okay, let me go to the right. Let me check out this place. You can even jump between places, So you're 100% conscious of your bodies. Now you have the reins of your willpower. The fourth layer, which is something that happens that people write about, which is you see people's qareen. And people's qareen is like, remember all those deeds that sit on your halo? Sometimes when nobody fixes it or nobody tries to better and work themselves, the qareen starts taking shape. So you look at somebody and you see like their halo, there is like a shadow on their face that looks like a wolf or something. And a lot of Sufi mystics would pray for that layer, for them not to see people's qareen, because they wouldn't be able to look at people's faces. And they write about the fact that God, like your guardian angel will block that, and you won't be able to see it anymore. So you have a say in how your life goes, but it doesn't take away from the fact that when we fix these issues, I talk about this, even our nafs, like every disease, everything starts in the spiritual realm first. Everything is energy first. It becomes thoughts, then it becomes actions. If, for example, I've met people who have like thyroid disease or like any throat problem, right? Tonsils and stuff. It's because of the energetical vampires. They're taking your energy away from you. There is a being that's attached to you that is not conscious. It's like a mosquito. A mosquito doesn't know who it's biting. It just bites because there's blood in your blood. This energetical vampire is feeding off of your halo, and the godly energy that's being given to you, that's your rizq. Every day you get a godly energy that comes within your body, and because of your own deeds, something else is taking that energy away from you. So your own chakras, or like what you need spiritually for the throat to be at its best shape, is no longer there. It's being taken away by something else, right? So then you might develop thyroid disease, tonsil issues, ear problems are also connected to the throat, tooth problems. So you might have a lot of toothaches. Your tooth might become corrupt, like, what do you call it? Not corrupted, but like
Decayed.
Yeah,
cavities.
So if you have, like, for example, I'm doing the meditations 3.5 months. I do 2 weeks of each chakra. And also we do chants that have the same frequency as that chakra. So, I do Islamic chants. So in Islam, the words have abjad numeric system. So there's 5 languages where the letters are connected to numbers, and numbers are the universal language of the world. So when you're saying certain chants or sayings, you're actually tuning in or coding in the numbers. So you're saying 2, 3, 5, 5, 6, 7, and these are like the frequency of that. So for example, for my roots, I say Allahu Akbar. Or, sometimes I just say astaghfirullah, but astaghfirullah works with everything. It's good for cleansing all of the little things. If people are more interested, I'll dive more into this. But so for my root, I was working on it. And for 2 weeks, I had a lot of leg pain in my legs, and it was just something that happened suddenly. And I knew, because it's shedding the negative energy, and you have to spray rose water on it, meditate on it, because even shedding the energetical vampires can be very heavy. And one of the things with energetical vampires, they're conscious. It's like a mosquito. You know how I've once watched a mosquito bite me and I was trying to flick it off, it wouldn't leave. It's the same thing. When you become conscious of the fact that you have this, it will fight to stay on top of your halo, because you're the source of food.
Yeah.
So you have to go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it's interesting because there are a lot of people that hear things that sound very mystical, and their automatic assumption is to say that this is not true, it's not documented, it can't be proven by science. But I think it's actually miraculous, because science is only now catching up to things that have been taught to us for thousands and thousands of years. Like now there's a new field in psychology called psychoneuroimmunology, which looks at how your psychology actually affects your body and can make you sick. So this is something that's only being taught now, but it's something that's been documented in spiritual books and spiritual practices for centuries. And so I think it's really interesting for people that are skeptical. One of my favorite quotes is one of my favorite quotes ever is, "Science is just magic that works." If you think about the way that computer chips work and the why we have electricity even actually is just energy that was already here in the earth. So everything that's been explained now scientifically and all of the innovations that we have now, they all come from nature. They all come from God. All the minerals we have on earth even were once stars. So if you think about the world like that, it's all so magical. It literally gives me goosebumps because it's all real. Even people that write stories and write fiction, like to your point, This is stuff that they've seen. They just don't even know it.
Everything already is. You just have to tap into it.
Yeah.
And this is how Tesla says he created electricity. He said it was there. The idea was there. I just tapped into it. And I feel like even when you look at Dali, when you look at famous painters, he says that all of these stuff that I'm drawing is things that I'm seeing in my dreams.
Yeah.
So where are people seeing this stuff? Nothing under the sun is original. Everything is a copy of what God already is. And you know, with Sufism, we say that everything is God. So when you tap into anything, whether it's from biology, whether it's from science, all of these things, whether it's from religion, it's there for you to tap into and know thyself better and be able to ascend and reach the best state that you can be in, you know? So I feel like with this, like I also saw like somebody on Joe Rogan's podcast, he was like, a lot of people talk about this. They're like, if you take an electric bulb and you take it back in the day, people would think it's magic. They didn't know what it was, okay? And I'm okay with the fact that we have become more scientific because science is actually breaking down ideas and explaining it to people, but they still haven't caught up to the spiritual sciences of things. They still haven't even like, not mechanical engineering, quantum physics is something that's like taboo, or like quantum mechanics is like we don't know how atoms are operating. We don't understand it yet. And I met with somebody, there's a technology in Germany where you can hold this like machine and it shows you your halos, but it just shows the colors and which one is stronger. It still hasn't reached the level. Like when I think about it, I would love for science to one day be able to create cameras where we can see all of these beings that they say live with us on this planet. We could one day create technology that we can pick them up.
But I don't know. I always come back to this. Human beings only see sensory information that pertains to their survival. If we could see all of these things, for a lot of people, it would overwhelm them to a point where they wouldn't be able to function normally. It would be very cool to have a camera that can see it, because then it's like, if you want to see it, you can. But I do wonder, I think it's like, I don't know. I just think it's all...
I feel like everything happens due time.
Yeah.
Like when we are ready and more people... You see, there is a wave of collective consciousness that's washing up towards becoming more aware. Even two girls from the Middle East speaking about psychology and bettering yourself was something that when my mom was going to therapists was taboo to even go to one. So I feel like just like phones and emails and the internet, when we're ready for it, those things will happen. And when people see it, some people will be afraid, but some people will be glad that it's giving them the consciousness to know that there are beings like that. Like one time, the best way I can explain energetical vampires, one time I was in a jungle and I saw this dog, and the dog was like, you know how like pieces of its fur were falling down? There were insects that were attached to it. It was kind of limping. And I thought to myself, I'm like, look at it. The jungle is eating it alive. It's just nature. And the thing with nature and the way that Gaia works is almost like every battle, whether it's political or not, every battle is about energy and survival. And you have an energy that you're producing every day, that there are beings that want that energy. And I feel like there is a spiritual battle for beings that are fighting to own the energy that's portrayed within your vessel. There's two things you can do. Either you can give your energy away to people. There's a lot of people talking about, you know, how people take your energy, how people are energetical vampires, how people are backstabbing you and you shouldn't give your energy where it doesn't belong and you should portray your energy. Correct. Now let's take it one step further. Spiritually, what are you doing? There's two things. You can either give your energy away or you can rein it in and make sure that that energy stays within you. And that's when you start ascending. For example, anxiety is 100% a spiritual thing that happens to you. When your halo's thinner, you're more prone to being affected by the energy of others. I hear a lot of people say that they're empaths, that they pick up a lot of emotions, and I relate to that. That's something that's happened to me. But what about the fact that empaths, we can do something? First things, let's look at it physically. We can stop hanging out with people that take our energy, right? That's something that a lot of people are talking about. It's becoming very modern. People are putting Instagram quotes and blah, blah, blah. The next step is making sure your halo is so strong from within that nothing affects you anymore. So you start protecting these halos. How do you do them? You dissect and you go within. You start working chakra by chakra. So for example, I have this like chart that I do. I put in a chakra what it has. Like for example, the root is in charge of anger, fear. When it's at an imbalance, what happens is that your chakras are always rotating, okay? They're always producing energy like this. What ends up happening is that if your energy is being sucked, the rotation of the chakra, root chakra, is supposed to be 365. By the way, that's like the Tesla numbers, right? 365, 639, and 963, which is the crown chakra's frequency. So your root chakra is spinning constantly. Things are happening. You're becoming angry. You're swearing in traffic. You are afraid because money's not going to come. All of these beliefs, right? So they're now affecting that chakra. What happens is that it starts operating and spinning at a lower frequency. Your root has the potential to operate and spin at a frequency of 365, but now it's working at a 150, 200. What happens? You have leg pain. It's not operating on the level it needs to. So now your entire leg region that's, connected to that major chakra is not getting the energy of rotation that it needs. It's like, if I put a like a hairband around my hand, the blood is not pumping. So what happens is that you get a little stain when you remove it, right? You've stopped the overflow where naturally you're supposed to be, going about life happily, saying that money is abundance, is coming to me. Now you're afraid. You're afraid of your next bill. You're afraid of what will happen to you. All of those things are blocking you from being your best self. So I work for 2 weeks on that chakra. I replace those thoughts with other thoughts. And another thing is that I just become conscious of them. I notice what is it that I'm doing with the root that's concerning the root. And one of the things I've noticed actually doing these meditations is that my root personally, the roots are the roots of you. They cause everything else. When the root is not operating at its best, all the other chakras are kind of wobbly. And then it's like kind of plays like a music instrument. They play on one another to make you. And I've noticed that one of my biggest sins or deeds comes through my mouth. Like, for example, I'm not somebody who goes around hitting people or, doing things out of anger and punching walls. Some people do that. For me, it's like if I want to tell somebody to stop, maybe I shout at them. Maybe I swear at them. It's all through the mouth. It's like my mouth has become the thorn or the sword that I use to protect myself. But when you become more conscious and you start working on yourself, when your frequency rises, you no longer feel the need to reply to people even. You protect your energy. And that's why every podcast I keep sitting here and I'm like, oh, my parents are doing this and this. And one of my things is to make sure that I don't respond. Because things can happen to us, but it's our responsibility to make sure that we react in a correct way. I'm working on all the reactions. Go ahead. I feel like you want to say something.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I feel like you can't control what other people do or what happens to you in life. The only thing you have true control over is your reaction. And so you can either choose to indulge in things that don't serve you or engage with people that are going to just drain you and your energy, or you can choose to take a step back, take a breath, and to give that energy back to yourself.
So what do you feel about everything that I'm saying?
I feel like Yasmin and I always have these conversations where she explains these things to me. And I always think it's so fascinating to me because you didn't, how can I say this? So I'm someone, like, for example, I took theta healing and this is how I learned.
I'm 100% listening to you. I'm just looking.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
I took theta healing, for example. This is where I first learned about chakras, energy healing, all of these different things. Even energetic vampires, this is a concept that comes up in theta healing. But you came and you've told me about these things without necessarily taking courses or programs. It's things that you've actually experienced. And I always think that mesmerizes me. It like kind of blows my mind. And I think maybe not everyone knows that. I mean, obviously you've learned and you've researched about them now, but I feel like it's just proof to me of the fact that these things exist because people experience them without knowing what they're experiencing. Like, for example, I have one of my dear friends, she used to be able to see my halo and she'd tell me I can see colors. she might not have known necessarily what that was. Or for example, my mom, she's also someone that she can read people's energy. She has dreams that, for example, happen and come true. And all of these things to an outsider sound very like mystical, but the fact that it's so well documented and so many people experience them, to me, is proof of the fact that they're very real.
One of the reasons we don't hear about a lot of it, there's two reasons. One is that a lot of these documents were burned throughout history because of the different wars and religious aspects of it. But also because in Sufism, for example, we know this stuff, but we're not allowed to talk about it to other people. Why? Because let's say I see your halo and I see a being on your halo, okay? I am, as a Sufi, one of the rules of Sufism is that you're not allowed to talk about Sufism unless people ask you about it. And the reason for that is, let's say I see something in your halo, or sometimes when you have your third eye starts opening on a bigger level, you see images of people's future or things that have happened to them in the past. Or, every time somebody has a sexual interaction with somebody, their halo, there is these strings between you and that person, and you can kind of like see a flash of an image of how that has happened. How, like, for example, you might have kissed somebody and there is like something here that's like a string, and if a Sufi looks at you, they see an image of you kissing that person, okay, and you know what that string is for. There is different like bloops of things that can happen. You can search this like halos blockages and what it kind of looks like. I can even do it here on the program and show it to you guys. But as a Sufi, let's say I see that, and I see that you kiss somebody, and maybe you're married, and you kiss somebody that wasn't your husband before or after. I am not allowed to expose you and ruin your dignity. That's a sin on my behalf. My intention is ill-willed. Why should I even tell you that? That's between you and God. So yes, you become from khud, which is self in Persian, you reach khuda, which is God. You have a godly eye where you see things normal people cannot see. But that doesn't make you God. So you can't go walk around and tell people like, oh, you have a nice halo, I see that, and like you pretend like you know more than other people do so you can kind of get an attention. And also, like, let's say you have like a little animal there. What if that person becomes afraid because they don't know what energetical vampires are, and they start imagining these monsters that are sucking on her blood, or like, like a being, and then they become even more afraid. Their root goes into like a problem. Now you've caused that for them with your words. So one of the first things we do silent silent fasts. We go in a period of 40 days where we sit in silence, because you're not allowed to speak when people are not speaking to you. You're not allowed to give your opinion, and you start putting hijab on those nafses. You start putting hijab on your senses. You start reining things back, and that is stoicism.
Yeah.
Where we always say, like, I read a lot of Toba prayers, and I do a lot of Toba for my deeds. And I say, like, I'm sorry I even interfered. I'm sorry I gave my opinion. How my opinion is only one level of the perception. It's just my perception of what the truth is, and I know nothing. And I always say this about the truth. The truth is like there's many perspective, and when the collective perspective, when all of our views with every being and everything is combined, only then does it become the ultimate truth. And I don't know the ultimate truth. So how can I even speak? It's all my opinions of things, or how I perceive the world, which is nothing actually. So it's then when you start doing that, that's another practice that we do, which is humbling the ego, killing the ego softly. So you no longer do things to be perceived a certain way. You just exist in who you are truly from within.
Okay, so I have questions for you. Okay. So we've explained kind of now what chakras are, what the nafs is. What are some of the things that we can do? Because you mentioned them in passing, like, for example, saying istighfar or saying tawbah and doing things like that. What are other ways that people can kind of cleanse themselves spiritually?
Okay, so the language of the universe is numbers. Words have numbers attached to them. It's called the Abjad numeric system. There's 5 languages that have that: Hebrew, Aramaic, Persian, and Arabic. And Sanskrit also has it. Some Chinese languages also have it, okay? So when you're saying words, you're coding the world. Your words, abracadabra, it's an Aramaic word. You know that word?
Abracadabra in the movies.
Abracadabra, yeah. It's an Aramaic word for I say, so it is.
Really?
Yeah. And it comes from Jesus. He said that because Jesus spoke Aramaic. And I feel like if Jesus' work stayed as it is, the world would have not been. If Jesus wasn't betrayed, the world would have not been as it is. I feel like they destroyed a lot of his knowledge, and he was as really he was like a Sufi and a Greek philosopher in his own right, you know, and nowadays when they find the book of Enoch and he talks about all these different angels, like he had entered not only the states we enter, because depending on your frequency, your nafses travel to the realms that you resonate with. So a lot of people in their dream state might see a lot of black and, you know, things like that. That's because you're just still here in the third dimension. But when you start rising, you start seeing color and you start going to the dimensions above, the fourth dimension, fifth dimension. And this is where angelic beings, and then there is also the heavens. And I feel like from what I read, like what I've seen from the book of Enoch, he was entering the states of the seven skies, which Hebrews talk about. Anyway, so all of this information I've gotten from different places, you know, and they're very discards. Like you can't really you can't find them. And a lot of these books that are mystical have a lot of magic or darkness in them because they've been rewritten. So you can't, like, I try to find these online because it's not good to bring them in the house anyway. It has a story of its own. So let's say we're working on ourselves, okay? So first thing is awareness. Become more aware of what patterns, what cycles are you repeating? Are you meeting people that are always liars? Now, this is where we go back to my opening. Dr. Len Hugh,
Yeah, I think you said Hugh Len. I'm not sure.
the Hawaiian doctor, what he would do is he would do Oponopono. So he would sit there, read through the medical or like what these people have a problem with. In Oponopono, it's this understanding that we're all one. And if I have attracted something in my reality, it's a representation of who I am. In a way, they're kind of Sufis. So what he will do is he would sit there, take accountability and responsibility for the deeds someone else has done, and start cleansing it with 4 sentences or chants that are Hawaiian called Oponopono. So he says, if I have consciously or subconsciously, he would name the person. Like if I, Dana, who am you, if I have consciously or subconsciously been in an imbalance with the universe and God and all that is good and great, and therefore I have committed sins 1, 2, 3, or I'm in a state of mind that I am today, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I thank you. I love you. That's the 4 sentences. And you keep repeating them. And he keeps saying chants like, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I thank you. I love you. And he would sit there cleansing them. And these patients would become better psychologically because he was cleansing them from afar. Wow. And that's how he healed the entire psychiatric ward. And that's why so many books, there's a book called Zero Limit. You guys can go and read the entire book. Oponopono is like something that I first started with. And my entire journey started with the fact that I used to be such a lucky kid when I was younger. I used to attract anything that I want. I used to just vibrate on a higher level. And then somehow I started noticing that not only me, but my entire family keeps attracting the same events to ourselves. And I was like, what is that? Why is it that my dad who's so capable, like can't get back up? We were rich one day and then now we're not so rich. What happened that caused those things? It doesn't seem to be a physical thing. It seems like it's happening to us. And it's like we keep repeating, like my dad would have these major deals and they would fall and they wouldn't happen. And I was like, why is it like he's been trying to make a business deal for so long and every one of them just doesn't go through? So for me, it was that. Another thing was my relationship. I was like, I don't want to repeat what happened to my parents and I want to fall in love. I've talked about this before. So I started just becoming more aware of the cycles that I'm creating. And then I went to psychology where I started reading up on all of these things that you beautifully talk about. And then I feel like when when that thing happened to me and my third eye suddenly opened, I then started noticing that all of this is spiritual. Yeah, they all have a hand in hand. And I'm trying to, because I'm new to this and obviously I'm not a Sufi, I'm not a master, I'm trying to understand it best as I can, but I would love to share it with you guys if more people are interested. So what I do now is I work with a Sufi teacher that I found, and I do a meditation for each chakra for 2 weeks, okay? So the whole thing takes 3.5 months, and there's different practices that you do, okay? So the first thing is I write down everything that the root chakra imbalances show. You can chat GPT this. Be like, chat GPT, what is the imbalance of the root chakra? You start reading up on what the chakra is, what does it control, what is it responsible for, and what blockages are. It can either be overly working or underworking. So let's say you have a like block chakra where you're afraid, you feel like you have lack, you don't feel safe, security, all of these things that you would tell me, Yasmin, I feel like you have lack, you're afraid, da, da, da. So I sit and I've made this chart, okay, and they're color coded, and I literally have certain deeds that I need to be more mindful. So the deeds that I work on for this is
Could we give people this template?
yeah,
Or like they can edit it and like add their own.
if they want to,
Yeah, we can make it like downloadable.
So first thing, every day I do 10 things that I'm grateful for. So just like gratitude. Gratitude helps with lack. It's like the opposite of lack. I also do practices like, for example, do not complain about others or yourself. Shh. Speak good or stay silent. Really, if you don't have anything good to say nothing. Practice saying nothing. As you go along and you say nothing, you want to attract people who keep saying so many things to you and agitating you. You'll meet people in your resonance. Gossip and lies. Don't lie and don't gossip. Whether it's about a celebrity, whether it's about a politician, you know nothing. You don't know those people. Don't speak about them. So I practice this. Like, for example, even a few nights ago, I went on live and I was talking about like the people on Love Island. You don't know them. Why are you doing that? So like the nights where I haven't ticked is because I have gossiped and lied. So anger. Sometimes like I'm walking and I'm like, oh, I can't believe like my hair looks that way. Why are you angry? Become more conscious of it. So I tick it. When you tick things, you remember better. So these are all like, different things that I do. Then I do a meditation. The meditations have to be explained. Maybe we can do another podcast where I can actually like talk to people about it, because it's just like with nothing. You don't light up oud at all. There is no crystals. It's just you sitting in one position and your energy. That's it.
I think that meditation could be interesting. Maybe we could do a separate video, even just like upload it on the YouTube channel of the meditation itself.
That makes me nervous.
I wanted to say something else I think is very interesting. Psychiatrists, therapists, they actually recommend this as well. Journaling is something that's very, very popularized now. But I think also another thing, like when I was in therapy, my therapist would tell me to write down every time I engaged in a certain behavior that I was trying to stop. Because obviously once you're aware of something, it's only then that you're able to take action against it. And another thing is, I think a question that everyone needs to ask themselves more is why. Not why things are happening to you, not why is everything so unfair, but why am I engaging in this behavior? What is the reason that I keep repeatedly doing this?
Exactly. What is it in me that's attracting that external thing? The entire universe, close your eyes right now. If you did not exist, would the world exist? No. It would go on, but it's only your perception. You are in charge of 100% of everything that's happening within you. So you have to take accountability. Okay, I met somebody who swore at me today. You might think, oh, why did that person do that? What is it in you that attracted that person to swear on you? Then you start cleansing that.
Yeah.
So then, for example, once I reach the awareness for this, the meditations and stuff is just to get the chakras to rotate and become their healthiest version, and also shedding the energetical vampires from your halo. It's a cleansing thing. And it's just like, there is like breath work that goes with it. There is like 4 or 3 exercises during the day that I do. And I have dedicated this period of 3.5 months to do this. So it's a big process. But also, you can start with where I started 5 years ago, which whenever I would notice something, I would cleanse myself. Read about Ho'oponopono, read the book Zero Limit. And while you're sitting there, let's say you feel lack, and you feel like your husband is not putting as much effort as they should for you. You have a lack, you attract people who also come from a place of lack. So you want to fix your husband, you fix yourself. You want to fix your patient, you fix yourself. Everything is a reflection of you. So what do? I sit there and I say a chant. Like, for example, on my way here, I was like, I really want to attract my soulmate and I just don't want to date for dating. And even that feeling of wanting something so bad, I cleanse it. Because it's everything that's sitting, your soul sits in the middle of your heart chakra, okay? And everything that's sitting here that's not God has to go. And that's where I was talking about detachment. Think of it as a throne. If your mom and dad, if your husband, if your children, anything sitting here that's not God, you will be tested for it because it's extra weight. This throne only belongs to God, which is your highest self. Everything else is an extension of God. It shouldn't have strings to your heart. For example, sometimes you meet people who literally their halo, their heart chakra is so heavy because they feel responsible for their kids. They like have thoughts of like, what if my husband's, like they worry for their husbands? What if his financial state is not good? You know, all of these things are separating. They're not your responsibility. Like, for example, a lot of people who have back pain here around their neck and shoulders is because of overly responsible. You're overly responsible. You need to trust and have enough faith that everyone has a God within them that will shine the light towards the right path. Let them do them. You do you.
Yeah, I definitely know I have an overactive heart chakra because I'm very guilty of that. I always worry about others, or I try to fix things for other people. And to your point, truly the only way to fix things is by fixing them within you first, and then that gets mirrored back and around you. I think it's an interesting thing because for a lot of people, for example, even with me, when I first started working on myself, it was an extremely scary process because I became very conscious of the fact that what if I heal this and then I lose people that I love? And so for a lot of people, it can sound scary at first because we even discussed this on the episode on love and attachment. For people that are so deeply rooted in attachment and that don't fully understand what real love is and the feeling of freedom that comes with real love, attachment is something that you actually hold on to. And people can have attachment to beliefs that no longer serve them. This is something that's extremely common. That's why it's really hard for people to change, because your brain is constantly working to keep you safe. And it thinks by holding on to these things, it's going to keep you protected, but it doesn't. And so even for me, for example, when I first started working on myself, it was an extremely scary process where I constantly kept going back to point zero because I was afraid to let certain things go. And it was like you'd reach a point where you're almost like at a precipice where if I go past the step, I know that my life is actually going to change, but it's really hard to take that final step.
In the last episode, we spoke about this where we talked about how your brain doesn't like change and it likes comfort. And your halo and all of these beings sitting on it and all of these cords also like comfort because they're getting fed by you. Yeah. You will never know what your fullest potential is if you are afraid of losing things. Those things are not you. And that's the first thing where you have to start. And that's why I told you my favorite element is fire. Burn it down. And I have to tell you something. You will lose a lot of people. You will lose a lot of things because they don't serve you. When you attracted them with a lower frequency. Your higher self doesn't need these things. Yeah. It's moving forward.
But it's so interesting because it's still a scary process. Like even remember months ago when you came to me and you gave me that exercise to do to break that cord of attachment and to like dissolve the attachments that I had to external things and people around me. It was so scary. And I subconsciously kept putting it off because I was like, I don't want to do it. Remember, every week you would ask me, did you do it? Did you do it? And I'd be like, no. It only got to a point where I did it because I was like, okay, this is really bad now. I need to fix it.
And tell people how you felt after you did it.
I felt so good. Should we tell them what I did? She told me to read a certain surah from the Quran a certain number of times every day just to cleanse the attachments that I had. And at first I kept resisting it. But once I finally did it, afterwards, even the relationship that I think was the root of that, the reason I wanted to do it, ended up improving. And I just, I made it about something else, but really about me. I feel like so much in my life and the way that I was within myself changed. So much of my anxiety diminished because those things that were external to me were no longer controlling me.
So what we do with Sufism is we use anything, but I know a lot of people like Quranic remedies, so I give them Quranic remedies. But you can literally start with Ho'oponopono. I have friends who don't like Islam at all, and they were like previous Muslims, and they don't want to say anything Islamic. So I give them Ho'oponopono or like chants that are from Hinduism. But I understand where people are coming from, and like some people feel safer doing spiritual stuff with the Quran, so I give them Quranic remedies. But for example, with the Quran, Sufis, we don't read the whole Quran because you know how in Ramadan people read it from start to finish like 5-6 times. We give intention. So I gave you an intention of what it is you want to cleanse. You had to say that words. You had to say, I want to cleanse this, this, and this. And we use the frequency of those ayahs that are on a certain frequency to cut those cords. So we use the Quran and the power of those words and the numbers hidden within them to then raise your frequency. And naturally, when your frequency raises, all of those cords, all of those energetical vampires shed because they get burnt. They almost can't, they can't operate at a higher frequency. So they just no longer resonate with you. They have to go. They detach themselves. Otherwise, they will die.
Yeah. And even like, for example, reading the Mu'awwazat, if for people that are religious as well, it's like reading the Mu'awwazat is a really good practice because that also strengthens your halo.
I feel
Protects your
like
halo.
I don't do anything without giving intention.
Yeah.
So my point is I'm not a religious person. I don't read Quran for the sake of reading Quran. Like if I have an intention and I know a certain surah has that frequency that I need, I use that. So we find literally ayahs in a certain surah. Like for example, Ayatul Kursi is one piece of the Surah Baqarah. I don't read the whole Baqarah. I read Ayatul Kursi for doing 1, 2, 3, you know? So, look, I want to show you guys another thing. I have this other chart where I write a behavior. For example, friend asked difficult question. Okay? Trigger. My root got triggered. I got scared. Then I wrote that as a result of that, I felt unloved in my heart. And then I felt like I will be judged. My sacral was also involved. So I lied. Another thing, how they play on each other. The first rule of working on yourself is becoming conscious. I don't like to do anything if I'm not conscious of why it is I'm doing it. You can sit there and read Quran 24/7. Your frequency will not become higher if you're not working on your deeds as well. Everything, the mind, the body, and the physical, the mind, the body, and the soul have to start rising together. The triangle has to rise above on its own, by all together. So, lack of belonging. I went to a group of friends of mine. I told Dana, I felt like I didn't belong. They were all such cool kids. They were rich. They were saying about things that they've done or how they're going to travel. I felt like I lack. So then my solar plexus was like, so first my sacral was like, I'm not enough. They're all so successful. I am not enough. Then my solar plexus went and said, I need to protect my image because the solar plexus is in charge of the protection. My third eye invented a story and my throat lied the story to them. Now, with my lie, I feel more like I belong. When you work on yourself, when you say the names of God that resonate with those, you fill yourself with pieces of God, almost like God is Pokemon and you're collecting him within your shell. You don't feel lack because you're like, God, I am as I am God. And and all of those feelings of lack and belonging, they start dissipating because you just become enough. So what I do is like I say the zikr that, like for example, I'm doing when I feel lack, I say Ya Ghani, Ya Basit, Ya Razaq, sorry, which is like I'm rich, I'm wealthy, I am enough, I have enough, you know. So you counterattack them. And if people are interested, I can also do this. I've created all of this by myself. But I feel like the chakras are a very good way to start understanding the subconscious mind. Because I've read books on neuroplasticity, the atomic habits. And sometimes science is like, it's amazing. And I would still read more books that come up on the subject. I even told you now some of the things that we can talk about. For example, any books that you guys read on the subconscious mind, conditioning, how traumas, like what we talked about, we introduced some books. The nervous system, you can read books on neuroplasticity and how your habits and behaviors and beliefs literally form pathways that keep repeating themselves, okay? And Hebb's Law, you can read books that are scientific, that are on predictive processing. How, for example, sometimes we attract future events. We're afraid of things that might happen in the future. And that's because we lack in the present moment. So we start making our
Stories.
subconscious mind starts practicing things for the future. Sorry.
Predictive processing is really interesting because essentially what your mind is doing, so your mind is essentially a machine that's always processing data. When you collect data, it either aligns with the beliefs that you have or it doesn't. What happens is your brain, because there's so much information that you have on an everyday basis, it filters everything out. Things that are not relevant to you, that don't pertain to a story you've told yourself, or things that matter within your life get filtered out. But once you put them in your conscious awareness, that's why, for example, if I tell you, Yasmin, do you see any red cars? You might not have noticed, but then all of a sudden you start counting on the street and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 red cars. And that's not because the red cars suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It's because they came within your frame of consciousness. Now you're aware of them. And that's exactly how predictive processing works in the mind. Once you have certain beliefs, your brain is constantly going to filter out information and show you what realigns with those beliefs. Exactly. And that's why 9 times out of 10, the things that we believe about the world are biased. Because we're only getting information that aligns back with what we already believe.
We can only understand the world through our 5 senses. And that's why now you guys also know the spiritual thing that's happening. There's a science behind it that's spiritual as well. It's scientific with the mind, but it's also happening on a spiritual level. And also another book or another topic that you can start researching on is confirmation bias, which is kind of something like she talked about. The default mode network. Anyway, there's a lot of cognitive
different processes, cognitive processes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, confirmation bias is kind of what we said. It's like you're going to agree with information that already aligns with your views. Or there's also fundamental attribution error.
I want to show you guys this. This is architecture in India. And you see these columns that have this shape. We'll try to put it. But all of the Indian architecture is like this. And it's funny because a lot of people on Twitter start noticing that not only does it look like strands of DNA, but also like when you zoom in, but also it starts to look like an engine for a jet and the way that it's made. Think of yourself, when you start looking at the chakras and how they start operating, you see that you're also like these layers of cake that are constantly working. Picture yourself like an engine. You're working to go either above or to go below. When you're on the below and you've drilled into the ground or the lower states, you start attracting things on that state. But what you can do, what ascension is, what we're put on this earth to do, is to use all of this, take control of your nafs or your lower self to rise above, like the farvahar. The wings, with what? Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. But because we have so much stimuli, we have so many things that are affecting us, our beliefs. Every person is a combination of people they've met, how they were raised, the regulations in their home, societal rules, cultural norms, or also some things that you had problems with since you were born. All of those things have shaped you, but you are not who you are. And that's why in my book, I have that class called Unmaking. Let's unmake ourselves. Let's burn like a phoenix in the ashes. So from the ashes, we rise again. But this time, we do it consciously with the correct tools. We have science now. We have psychology now. We can read on it. And I'm so tired. I mean, whatever. People can do it. But like a lot of people, even including me, sometimes I go like, why? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And you just have to go and seek. When you are a seeker, when you become conscious, doors open up to you. And there was a point in my life where I had hit plateau with science and stuff, and maybe that's why my third eye suddenly opened. Because I saw this stuff and I was like, oh my God, what is this thing? What is this black thing that I'm seeing around me all the time? And then I went on this thing, you know?
I do think it's interesting because for a lot of people that work on themselves, they do reach a point where it's almost like you become frustrated with yourself and you're like, why can't I just change? Why can't I stop engaging in these things that no longer serve me? This is something that I've dealt with for a lot of my life. Kind of that question of like, why do I keep attracting the same person? Why do I keep having the same relationship in a different font? And the reason is because you haven't looked within yourself to identify what parts of you are resonating with that person or that thing that you keep attracting. Even when it comes to things like lack, if you're constantly in a place where you're looking outside of yourself, for example, to me, a lack mindset is, I don't have money, what can I do? I think that's a lack mindset because you're looking for a solution from a lens of lack instead of looking within yourself and saying, what are ways that I can make more money, but without attaching lack to it? Because I am abundant and I deserve even more. I think there's a way that we word things and we phrase things with ourselves, and it's so hard to actually change out of them. If you keep telling yourself things, and you have to keep in mind, like right now, the version of you that you are today has been inundated with so much information throughout your whole entire life that has gotten you to systematically think certain thoughts about yourself, certain thoughts about the world, certain thoughts about what is and what isn't possible for you. And so you have to learn how to shed all of that. It's not about what doesn't work, what you can or you can't have, because it's about you. When you unlock yourself, you kind of unlock everything around you.
You have to unwire in order to rewire.
Yeah.
You know, Sadhguru, I watch his videos and stuff, and I like to get perspective from all sides. And I like this guy, Sadhguru, and he doesn't have any education. And a lot of Sufis were that way. A lot of mystics were that way. And he says, when I had questions, I couldn't, like, there was no school and I didn't go anywhere, but I would keep asking myself, like, why am I this way? What is water? What is this? What is the grass? And I sat with myself. And when I sat with myself, the answers just naturally came to me. Sometimes people go outward to find answers for what's going on inside. Sometimes you go inward to find the answers of what's going on the inside. Yeah. And I find inward is the best method. I'm somebody, because we're modern and like we research and I study psychology, I like to also go outward but then I go outward, read a book, and then I go inward to understand myself better. And when you say like lack mindset, when we start taking awareness and we start noticing all the things that we're doing wrong that are attracting to us, it's not even the bigger stuff of like, why does this happen to me? Why don't I have enough money? Why are other people doing better than me? All of these stuff are external or sometimes like exaggerated. But when you start getting conscious, you start noticing something that Dr. Hugh Len talks about in his books. There's somebody else writing the book about him. He's not actually writing the book, but in the book Zero Limit, he talks about how they're going to the event, and he noticed that Dr. Hugh Len come to the event, and he started doing the chants, and the writer asked him, he's like, why are you doing the chants for this here? He's like, I didn't know if I will find a seat or not, so I start cleansing, and now there is an extra seat for me to take.
Do you know I did that today when I was coming in? There's this dua that I always say, like when I'm trying to find parking
spots.
Yeah, I swear to God, there was no parking and the guy left.
Yeah,
and I was like, perfect.
Sometimes, for example, you're late and you want parking. You're in a place of lack, so you're thinking about the future. You're like, there won't be any parking. You cleanse that.
Yeah.
Because then when you get there might not be any parking. For example, my father, he walks around the house and he's like, oh, don't do this to the fridge, it will break. Don't do this to the vacuum, it will break. All of these are lack.
And they all happen.
And they all keep happening. Yeah. And his car keeps breaking down. He buys the most brand new car. Something happens to the engine. 4 months, no car. Why? Because it's you. You're creating that.
Do you know, even the other day, my mom was speaking to someone on the phone, and the lady had said something of, inshallah, this stops happening, okay? And my mom was like, don't say that. And so I'm going to explain this in an interesting way, but you know how, like, for example, your subconscious mind, a lot of, this is something I learned in theta healing. I'm not sure if it's a common practice, but they say that your subconscious mind doesn't understand the word doesn't or isn't going to happen, or you have to be very straight to the point and very literal with what you say. And even, I think this applies even when you're making dua. Don't go and say, inshallah, I don't get sick, because the word don't kind of disappears in the middle. You have to say, inshallah, Allah yahtini al-afiyah, as-sahha. You're asking for something positive. When you add the word don't and you're saying for what you don't want, 9 times out of 10 you end up attracting exactly what you don't want. So
my Sufi teacher told me that's not the case.
But I've experienced it. For example, whenever I'm sitting here and I'm like, I think, oh my God, I don't want to get sick. Oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, I don't want. I end up having the exact thing that I don't want.
It's not because of your words, it's because of everything that happened before it.
Of course, it's
For
everything
example,
together.
you know you've done things that are about to spiritually, you get triggered and you understand that you're about to get sick. So you say that, but it's not the don't that attracted to
No,
you.
I know it's not, but I also think that what ends
I'll
up,
give you an example. For example, I sometimes your words create a cycle around you and you keep repeating things. So I sit there and I say, if I have attracted any of these, it's something completely different, maybe another topic, we'll talk about it. But I'm like, if I have created any of these loops that I'm getting placed in, I don't want them, I rebuke them, and I want them to diminish. I have to say that I don't want something.
that's fine,
So-
but I don't, it's not
I get what you're
necessarily
saying,
that.
but it's not true.
I think it's the way that your subconscious mind hears things. It's like you want to replace it with the actual thing. For example, you
The
literally
word don't
said,
doesn't have that much power. Everything you've done prior to that,
it's
like
not
for example,
I'm not giving the right explanation of it. There's a different
for
explanation.
example, I'll give you an example, okay? I know exactly what you're saying. I'm saying it's not the case. You have to look at it differently. For example, right now I sat here. I was afraid of speaking. I lacked, like, I don't have enough knowledge. I didn't show up on time, so I was afraid of the time. 3 chakras are in a place of lack where they're not operating right. The engine is not going well. And right now I have so much pain in the back of my throat because my throat had to overwork, where I had to scream, where I didn't take a breath before I spoke. And there is pressure. This thing had to carry the weight of me putting in the actions for everything else. Everything else in the body is just sitting here. One chakra is doing all the work. My ears hurt right now, my throat hurts, and I know I have to go home and cleanse my throat because I'm overusing it. Sometimes we sit there, we don't have anything going on in our life. We're not doing any physical activities. We sit there and daydream about a better life. You're overworking the third eye.
Okay, but what I have is more of a material definition.
I understand. What you've done is this. You have done deeds that have caused you to become sick. You're feeling the sickness is coming. You just say, I don't want to become sick. The word don't doesn't have that much
That's
power.
no, that's
Everything
not what I
between-
mean. But for example, I'll give you a better example because that's my point. Is that's not a good example. Have you ever been in a situation like I was with someone the other day that they were telling me, oh, it's been like a whole year. I haven't gotten a parking ticket. I haven't gotten any fines. Everything's amazing. 3 days later, they get a fine.
Yeah.
This is what I mean. I mean, it's more so
Because when
sometimes-
they said it, inside, they felt lack. And they thought to themselves, what if I get it? That
Then it's
attracted
attracted.
it. That's more powerful than don't.
I get you.
Think about it even deeper.
get you.
You get what I mean?
Yeah, because it's not that you're. I get maybe it's not the
minutes.
word itself. It's the frequency that you're resonating when you say things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the intention. I haven't had a fight with my husband and I never fight. Okay.
And then you get scared.
And then you get scared because people put bad beliefs in you that when you say it, you might fight.
Yeah.
And then you fight.
Yeah, true.
Fix
Yeah.
the belief, bro. The
makes
word
sense.
is just never. And the English language doesn't even have numbers behind it. So it's gibberish to the spiritual realm. So don't and never and this stuff has no power.
Okay.
But like, for example, sometimes when you say never, you actually help it. But when you have you have 7 bodies and they're saying it will happen.
Yeah, but
what's
that's-
going to attract it? The 7 bodies.
That's a really good way to put it though, because what then might be is that the word is a trigger for things that are deeper. So for example, if I say this is never going to happen and then on the inside it doesn't resonate with me, then it happens and I'm actually afraid. Like if I say I'm never going to get sick again and then I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah, because look, think about it. What's more important? 7 bodies, 11 autopilot systems for your physical body. You are the peak of creation. Your words are as they are, abracadabra. And all of this over don't. Come on.
I get your point.
It's like,
it's not
this
the
is
don't,
bigger.
it's
It's everything
things
else.
that come
Let's
along with it.
focus on that. Let's focus on a deeper level. So we have 2 minutes. We have to end this. I'm very happy that we got this. I'm going to go cleanse my throat. I would recommend you guys read some of these books, look into it, maybe talk to ChatGPT about it, just read up on what the chakras are. You can even Google energetical vampires or halo blockages and see the images for yourselves. These are real beings. They exist. And just start there. Start doing some research. So maybe the next episode or when we talk about this again, let us know in the comment section. We'll have more things to talk about. I can show you some meditation techniques because I don't believe in meditations with nothing. It has to be you and sitting there with your thoughts. And we're just gonna make some practices where you like, it's just like the energy in your body, and you just work on each of the chakras for a period of 2 weeks. But when you're cleansing with Sufism, we have to replace it with light. So we say zikr, we say chants, whatever you're okay with regarding your religion or whatever you're comfortable with, because you have to say those things with faith, and you have to say them with love. So you can even say the word love, 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 love. You don't have to say la ilaha illallah and this and that. You know what I mean? It has to be something that you really believe in.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. We can end it here. As always, we would love to end with a question. What question do you want to ask everyone, since today this is your episode?
Just read up on the chakras and what is wrong with, or what is the blockages or me overworking in each chakra, and answer that for yourself and look more into it.
And as always, it is not about having the perfect answer, but it is about wondering, remember. Wait, no, I said it wrong. But as always, it is not about having the perfect answer. It is about remembering. No.
It's about knowing that what we seek is always seeking us. Okay, let's go.